Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. At this point in time, I wonder if Larry's ever going to be on the show again. Just kidding. He's a busy man. He will be on the show shortly. We got a big camping trip we're trying to plan up. Go to SETI, find some aliens, Bigfoot, the whole 9 yards. It's going to be great. How you guys doing? Tired of Trump is going to destroy democracy? Trump is going to jail everybody. Trump is going to take our rights away. Trump is never going to leave the office if he gets in. Oh my God, Trump, 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 Trump. Democrats are in full panic now, aren't they? They did it to themselves, and I'm certainly glad Republicans have a fighting chance. So, our first little skit's going to be from the Rubin Report. Dave Rubin. Gotta love that guy. Awesome. He's going to talk a little bit about this Trump derangement syndrome and how everybody like AOC, Brian Seltzer, and the lot of the MSNBC crew are shaking in their boots. They're going to jail. Trump's going to jail them up. They're going to be in concentration camps, folks. So, here you go. The Rubin Report. AOC confesses to paranoid fantasies. Check it out.
Internet, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's tomorrow. We're live streaming on Rumble, Locals, and YouTube. Share, subscribe, tap the notification bell. Big show for you today. We're going to talk about basically the abject, total meltdown of everyone in mainstream media. They have been losing the narrative for years now. And as this Trump momentum continues to ramp up, despite the conviction and everything else, they are starting to freak out more and more. And it's actually quite hilarious. And we'll connect this to the Hunter Biden conviction, which actually happened yesterday while we were live on air. And then we'll talk a bit about how the bad policies of Biden, mainstream media and lies aside, the bad policies of Biden are really the thing that are causing people to wake up. And then, of course, really, we'll wrap it up with the good stuff, which is what I always try to do here so that you don't go on through the rest of your day feeling crazy, which is that there are some people out there warning us of what the problems are and actually giving some solutions. So that is the agenda for today. We will start in Clown World with AOC. She went on Kara Swisher. This is one of these leftist lunatics. Podcast, and she pontificated on what might happen to her if Donald Trump was to return as president of the United States.
What happens to you if Donald Trump wins? What do you do? What's your first move?
I mean, it sounds nuts, but like I wouldn't be surprised if this guy threw me in jail.
Really?
He's out of his mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did his whole first campaign around lock her up. Like, this is his motto.
Oh, he didn't say that, He said he didn't say it. Teasing.
Yeah, right?
That, yeah.
I take him at his word. I take him at his word. I take him at his word when he says that he's going to round up people. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. I take him at his word. I feel like what we saw in his first presidency was an amuse-bouche to what his intentions are. He has learned from his mistakes of appointing professionals, and he will not make that mistake next time.
Okay, so you are going to see a ton of this over the next 4-ish months till the election. It is going to get ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. And even some people, I know you think AOC's nuts. She's completely bananas and she's a socialist and would love to upend America and she would love to jail her political opponents too, which, by the way, is exactly what the system is trying to do to Trump right now. But you are going to see more and more of this, not just from the lunatics, but from the more mainstream people, because there is simply at this point no reason to vote for Joe Biden, right? Unless you're a complete sellout or you wish for the destruction of America, what is there that you are supporting Joe Biden about? Is it about his mental clarity? Because that ain't there. Is it about the policies on the border or the economy or what's going on with wokeness in schools and everything else? Like, everything is wrong and more people are waking up to it. So it's not just going to be the complete lunatics that have always said Trump is Hitler and everything else like AOC that are going to be doing this. It's going to be the more moderate people that'll ramp it up too to stop Donald Trump. So there's a couple levels of irony here. What she is claiming Donald Trump will do and the lock her up chance, Donald Trump didn't lock up Hillary Clinton, right? He didn't lock anyone up, okay? Some of his supporters, the base, might be annoyed that he didn't do some of those things and didn't drain the swamp the way he said. But it's AOC and the Democrats and this administration and the Department of Justice that are actively trying to put him in jail now. That's one part. She also mentioned that he wants to round people up. Yes, he has said he would round up illegals. We have about 7 to 10 million illegal people in the country. When you are here illegally, by default, by very definition of the word, you are breaking the law and you should not be here. Now, we can have all sorts of discussions. As I always say, what do we do about people who were born here? What do we do about people who have been here for years and are paying taxes and are law-abiding citizens and have jobs and have families? We can have all of those discussions, but we can't have those discussions until we figure out who is here and at least get rid of the criminals. Oh, and the terrorists who are coming through. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yes, this theme that AOC is pushing, that Donald Trump will put people in jail. By the way, that's not how the presidency works, right? Like, there are still, I'd like to believe, institutions that semi-work, and you can't just become president and start throwing everybody into jail, right? I mean, even Biden and the corrupt Department of Justice and everything else, there's still mechanisms they're using to try to throw Trump in jail. It doesn't just happen like that. Anyway, I cannot believe they have brought this guy back. This is so freaking extraordinary. It needs to be studied. What does Brian Stelter, Mr. Potato, who got fired from CNN for being completely awful at his job, right? He was absolutely awful. He was the joke of the world to everybody. I miss him in a way because we used to have a lot of fun with him. He gets fired from his job at CNN, hosting a show called Reliable Sources, because he was completely unreliable, right? What did I always say? If they would have just retitled the show Unreliable Sources, then you've got something that makes sense there. Anyway, he gets fired from CNN about a year ago. He becomes a professor of journalism at Harvard because irony is completely dead. And now, for some reason, as if there aren't enough sellout pundits there and enough people who look like they're filled with jelly that you could put on TV, they are bringing him back on CNN. So I don't know if he's a contributor now or what, but here he is with CNN's Abby Phillips. And yes, he is also ramping up the thing around Trump, who will jail his opponents.
It's valuable to think ahead to what may happen in a second Trump term. This is frankly speculative nonfiction because we use the words that Trump and his allies have said, and we use them to talk about the future. Jail, of course, is the extreme part of the spectrum. Imprisonment is an extreme part. But think about IRS audits. Think about government pressure on media companies. Think about other forms of government interference. There are a lot of pressure points. And frankly, Rachel Maddow's not the only member of the media thinking about this. I've talked to the heads of news organizations, CEOs of media companies that are thinking through, not in dramatic fashion, not because they're afraid of going to jail, but because they want to know what could Trump do to use his power in a second term to punish the media.
And it's also now a real question whether the voters actually take that information and believe.
Man, George Orwell himself, 1984, Newspeak, he would actually be impressed with what Brian Stelter just said there. It's speculative nonfiction. Well, if it's speculative, it's fiction. But they come up with these phrases and then they say these things, and I suppose a certain set of people actually believe them. By the way, when he's implying that Donald Trump might use the IRS to go after his political opponents, do you remember Lois Lerner, who was the head of the IRS under Barack Obama, and she went after all of the MAGA nonprofits? Do you remember that? That's what they do. 3 days after the recall of Gavin Newsom failed, and I campaigned with Larry Elder, the government of California was auditing me. That was the same day I put my house for sale. No joke. It's the mirror thing. Every single thing they say is what they themselves are guilty of. But yes, it is true. Rachel Maddow, who looks like a pencil, she is extremely worried that Trump's going to come after her. We've got some info here from the New York Post. Rachel Maddow said she is worried that Donald Trump returning to the presidency could mean she might end up in camps intended to house illegal immigrants. The MSNBC primetime host told CNN Monday that she was worried about the country broadly if we put someone who in power who is openly avowing that he plans to build camps to hold millions of people and to root out what he described as in subhuman terms as the enemy from within. Maddow added, "For that matter, what convinces you that these massive camps he's planning are only for migrants? So yes, I'm worried about me, but only as much as I'm worried about all of us." When Trump invokes the Insurrection Act to deploy the U.S. military against civilians on his first day in office, do you think he then rescinds the order in a day or two, Maddow asked? Okay, it's just they are ramping up the crazy again. Remember Donald Trump's presidency the first time, where there was a lot of good and then COVID had started getting wacky. But remember in the before 2020, in the 2016, was it 2016, the Summer of Love? What year was this Summer of Love? I'm blanking. It was 2020, yeah. In the 2020 Summer of Love, right before the election. Sorry, I got a little crossed up there. When violence was rampaging through blue cities and states, he didn't bring in the National Guard. So for all of the things that they're afraid of Trump on, he actually talks a bigger game than he actually does anything. But putting camps or making sure that you're going to kick out the illegals is very different than arresting pencil-looking lesbian MSNBC hosts, which I have not heard him say. And if he says it, then we'll address it then. Here's Rachel Maddow over on the televised mental institution known as MSNBC talking to another whack job, Nicole Wallace, about that if anyone says anything about the Orange Man, because nobody's ever said anything mean about the Orange Man before, if anyone was to say anything mean about this guy, he's going to come after them.
We need to stop talking about this as a threat that's going to arrive. You know, that the bad thing might start happening if the election goes X way. The bad thing is here. Mm-hmm. The attacks on the legal system, the attacks on the election, and our electoral system, those things are here. We're living with that now. The time to defend those things is now. It's not November, it's now, because now is when the damage is being done.
You know, I had George Stephanopoulos on, and I asked him some of these questions, and I said, you know, I was swatted, and it's a tactic meant to terrify you, right? Because people come to your house and your family lives there. And we talked about doxing, and there's so much that people don't surface, right? But the tactics that everyone on Earth One in a fact-finding position, and many of the folks we have on TV, former law enforcement, former prosecutors, all, you know, you ask two questions, you scratch a little bit, and you realize that everybody is under threat. Everybody who writes a story has either been doxed or swatted or threatened to be those things. People that cover the Trump story live differently, right, now than they did 8 years ago.
This is such, I cursed a lot yesterday. This is such extraordinary BS. It's off the charts that people who say mean things about Trump and write about Trump are under threat. Ask the January 6 people who are in jail right now in solitary confinement who's under threat. How come the base of the Democrat Party, the Antifa Hamas crew, and we'll get to them in a little bit too, how come none of them are in jail? How come nobody who just defaced monuments in front of the White House is in jail, right? Like every single thing they say is a lie. It's incredible. Again, you have to admire it to a certain extent, not what they do, but how they do it. That they can give you the 180 reverse of the truth on everything and say it with a straight face. I honestly do not know. Don't know if this is, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers or what. I don't know how people could do it. I could never do it. I could not do it. Anyway, Elon Musk saw that clip and read the previous piece that we read for you a moment ago. He saw that clip, though, and he wrote this, LMAO, laughing my ass off. Nobody cares because nobody is buying this epic nonsense anymore, but it's all they have. That's the thing. They're going into the well going, man, there's not much left here. We got to keep digging to dredge up something. And all they can dredge up is fear. And by the way, as I've said, it's going to continue to get worse. And you're going to see more and more people you think are sane who are going to go in on it, right? Because they want to stop Trump at all costs. By the way, when they talked right there about when Maddow talked about that it's the Republicans and the Trump people going after the legal system. It's Trump right now who is facing jail time. We'll find out on July 11th. When she said it's Trump and the Republicans going after the electoral system, it's you guys trying to take the Republican nominee off ballots in several states. It's you guys who don't want people to have IDs to vote. So who is really going after the electoral system? You may remember this one from a month ago, Nicole Wallace, what Trump's going to do to her, which I'm kind of for, but all right, whatever.
I've seen that toast a bunch of times, but it landed very differently this year because depending on what happens in November, 7 months from right now, this time next year, I might not be sitting here. There might not be a White House Correspondents' Dinner or a free press. While our democracy exactly fall apart immediately without it, the real threat looms larger. A candidate with outward disdain, not just for a free press, but for all of our freedoms and for the rule of law itself.
Nicole, I'll talk directly to you here. You are not part of the free press. You are a paid propagandist who works at a giant organization, MSNBC, and you are paid to sit there and read off your teleprompter and promote the government, Democrat, deep state, whatever you want to call it, narrative. You are nothing close to a journalist, and you probably shouldn't have that seat near because you should be fired for gross negligence, not because Donald Trump is going to jail you.
President Trump's response should be, I plan on doing everything the Democrats have been doing. That's one of the nicest comments that I've seen in a while. But really, these paid propagandists, as Dave calls them, these reporters, journalists, they've lost their integrity years ago. They're all freaking out because they know everything they've been saying is on film, tape, whatever you want to call it these days, and they're going to have some explaining to do. That's just crazy. AOC, that lady is freaking nuts. I can't wait for her to go. It's just mind-boggling. They gave us a narrative, it didn't work, and now they're spinning it again. And that damn dictator Donald Trump is going to ruin the country. Democracy is over. Sadly, everything that they say, they do. Unbelievable. The Rubin Report, go check it out. He has got way more to say on this issue and more things. He did mention, we all know that the trial of Hunter Biden, apparently he was found guilty. Oh, the ramifications from that are just now starting to be felt. For my next report, you got to listen to this. This is crazy. Sean Hannity, breaking Fox News, Hunter Biden. And he explains all of the craziness that came out from this court case. And Joe Biden, I hate to say it, but it's bye-bye, Mr. Joey. Your time is done. The world is now aware of your craziness and the stuff you've been doing to the American public. Folks, it's going to be crazy. We got 4 or 5 months of Donald Trump's going to ruin the nation, but we also have 4 or 5 months of, oh my God, how bad is the Hunter crime family been? Oh, unbelievable. Anyway, once again, Sean Hannity, he's got a lot to say. It's very important. He gives you a lot of that the rest of the media is not telling you, but it is coming out of the wash. And what I mean by coming out of the wash is, have you seen what they've been doing to Dr. Fauci? Oh, that guy's in trouble. He has been making a lot of crap up, and it's not going well. And then there are several states finding out, well, yes, the 2020 election was rigged. Look at all these extra ballots. All this craziness. Everything is turning upside down, folks. Thank goodness. We're tired of it. We need to move on. So, again, Sean Hannity, check this out. You're going to be amazed. The Biden family is done. Have a listen.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, total complete hysteria on the left. Wacko left-wing conspiracy theorist Rachel Maddow. She is now claiming she may be put in a camp if Donald Trump is elected. AOC saying Trump will throw her in jail. The left is losing their minds, but we already knew that. They maybe never noticed that it's only Trump people that get charged, harassed, and actually put in jail and so on. Anyway, far-left hack Merrick Garland is calling Trump's criticism of his weaponized Department of Justice, quote, dangerous for people's safety. We will address this tonight later in the show. And the president of your great country, the United States of America, our great country, is fear-mongering about the Second Amendment and calling for new gun restrictions just on the very day his very own son is convicted of 3 felony gun charges. But tonight, don't get distracted. Please pay very close attention to what I'm about to say. Because if you're listening to the media mob and the pundits and Democratic hacks, they have no clue about what really happened in the Hunter Biden case. None at all. It's deep. It is profound what has happened. The major story that they are not talking about or telling you about from Hunter Biden's trial is not the conviction on gun crimes. Now, it's important. That's low-hanging fruit. The evidence in this case was overwhelming. It was incontrovertible. And unlike Donald Trump, he had a fair venue, trial, judge with real charges and not ones that were made up that you didn't even know about. The critical development from this trial is one huge single piece of evidence entered into the official record by your U.S. government, and that's Hunter Biden's very real laptop. Not only did the U.S. federal government confirm that Hunter's laptop is real, they confirmed that its contents are real, and the contents have not been tampered with by anybody. In other words, you were lied to on a very high level just before an election by numerous people and entire institutions. You were lied to by Hunter Biden himself. You were lied to by his father, your President Joe Biden. You were lied to by NBC News, fake news, CNN, NPR. Well, let's just say pretty much everybody in the media mob. The list is far too long to mention. You were lied to by America's 51 former intel so-called experts, the ones that signed off on a letter insinuating that the laptop was most likely had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. Meanwhile, not a single one of them ever did anything to investigate that claim, examine the contents of the laptop. You were lied to by Clapper. You were lied to by Brennan. You were lied to by your own government. What do they all have in common? They all wanted Joe Biden to win by any means necessary, and it's worse than that. According to a report, John Solomon, the FBI, the DOJ, knew that the laptop was real since before the 2020 election. But instead of doing the right, honorable, and honest thing and telling the American people the truth, the federal government was out there pre-bunking the laptop story with big tech executives. Remember, in the months leading up to the 2020 election, the FBI was having weekly meetings. They were warning big tech companies they may all be victims of a foreign disinformation campaign about the election, and that misinformation may be about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. And it gets worse. They knew Rudy Giuliani's attorney had a copy of Hunter's very real laptop. They knew the odds were very high that it would leak before the election, and they knew it would likely destroy any chance that Joe Biden had to win the election. And then they had to act. After the New York Post broke the story, when Facebook and Twitter asked the FBI specifically if this is what you were warning us about, was the laptop misinformation, they refused to confirm the truth, leaving those companies free to then censor the very real laptop story, and that's what they did. I mean, you couldn't even send a private message with a link to the New York Post. Big tech, the media mob, all happily gobbled up their FBI, DOJ, pro-Biden contribution, misinformation. By the way, if it was in Alvin Bragg's district, they probably would be charged with an FEC violation. And ultimately, they use this as the basis to censor the most important information in the final weeks before the 2020 presidential election, all because they wanted their guy to win. This is beyond egregious election interference. And frankly, if it's not criminal, it should be criminal. But tonight, none of these liars have an ounce of remorse. None of them have any regret. For them, it was all a means to an end. They wanted Trump out. They wanted Joe Biden protected from scandal at all costs. And you better believe the contents of that laptop were and are today damning for Joe Biden as well as Hunter Biden. Forget the salacious photos of drug use and the prostitution and the firearms. The real scandal surrounds the so-called Biden brand. Now, if you look at the laptop and then other information acquired by the House Ways and Means Committee, the Judiciary Committee, the House Oversight Committee, you look at texts and emails, other files, zero experienced Hunter wasn't raking in cash from some of our top geopolitical foes and dictators and despots around the world because of his keen intellect. Instead, the laptop appears to show that he was likely selling access to the Biden brand, and the big guy was apparently eager to participate in spite of publicly claiming otherwise. Now, Hunter implicates his own father numerous times in that very real laptop. Remember Devin Archer, Tony Bobulinski, also debunked Joe's lie that he never once, not one time, ever spoke to his son, his brother, or anybody for that matter about their foreign business dealings. According to testimony before the House Oversight Committee, he participated in meetings with Hunter's foreign partners by phone. He dined with others at Cafe Milano, and that's not all. In 2017, you might recall the WhatsApp message published by the House Ways and Means Committee. Hunter allegedly writing to a Chinese business associate with their oil and energy conglomerate. I am sitting here with my father, and I'd like to understand why the commitment has not been fulfilled. I will make certain between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to hold a grudge that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. A few days later, magically, according to the committee, $5 million wired to a bank account associated with Hunter Biden. In other texts, other emails, Hunter allegedly talked about forking over half of his income to Pops. Another email talks about the big guy, 10% for him, allocating 10% as a cut-in of one of Hunter's deals. But Hunter, now a convicted liar, says he never intended to cut his father in on the deal. Meanwhile, according to a 2018 text from the laptop uncovered by the New York Post, Hunter even paid for his dad's bills for more than a decade. Hunter even reportedly claimed that his father was using up, quote, most of the lines of credit on his Wells Fargo account. And based on the contents of Hunter's very real laptop, it appears that Biden was participating in his son's business deals while also benefiting financially. Remember the testimony from Hunter's main business partner, Devin Archer, who said Joe Biden participated in up to 20 phone calls with Hunter and his foreign business associates. Oh, I thought he never talked business with Hunter or his brother or anybody. Think about this. Donald Trump was convicted on 34 so-called felony charges, upcharged misdemeanors, past the statute of limitations for allegedly mislabeling a legal document as a legal expense. Trump ordered to pay hundreds of millions of dollars because of a far-left New York judge unilaterally deciding, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary, that Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million, despite little vacant lots, a tenth, 1/20th the size of Mar-a-Lago. They go for $150 million, and that's just dirt. And yet the no one is above the law cult on the left, they don't seem to care that Joe Biden, now the president of our country, was possibly selling access to the highest levels of our government to people in China and Kazakhstan and Ukraine and Russia. This is all evidence the FBI and Garland's DOJ had for over 4 years and never, ever investigated any of it. And they knew all of it was true. This is what a weaponized and politicized Department of Justice looks like. According to the Johnson-Grassley Senate investigation, quote, Hunter Biden received $3.5 million in a wire transfer from Elena Baturina, the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. She was the former first lady of Moscow. If the reports are true and the evidence is accurate, money went from Russia to Hunter to Joe one way or another. So where's the Russia hysteria on the left? Devin Archer claiming she invested over, $100 million more dollars in a real estate venture? Where is the frenzied coverage on MSDNC, fake news CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS? They had no problem peddling the phony Russian misinformation dirty dossier that Hillary paid for to smear Trump and to secure not one but 4 FISA warrants. Where's their coverage of the contents of Hunter's very real laptop and the findings from the Senate and the House committees? Or is Joe Biden above the law? Is Hunter's gun conviction a red herring? One of Hunter Biden's ex-business associates telling Fox News Digital that the gun trial was, quote, a distraction from the main event with their influence peddling. He continued, quote, I am convinced the entire justice system is just an institution of people with agendas, not an institution of laws. Keep in mind the DOJ prosecutor tasked with investigating Hunter, David Weiss, he let the statute of limitations run out on the most serious allegations, which could have connected Hunter's business to the big guy himself. Sadly, the DOJ is not looking out for you. Their primary concern seems to revolve around protecting weak Democrats from scrutiny, helping to elect Joe Biden while waging lawfare against Donald Trump. And needless to say, massive reform and accountability is needed in Washington and in the swamp. And by the way, starting in September, early voting begins. In 146 days, it's Election Day. Only you can fix it. Here with reaction, Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley. We got over the case. To me, the evidence was overwhelming and incontrovertible. What about this real big story to me, which is now we know that they've known from the beginning that the laptop was real. All these people lied. The 51 intel agents, at the direction of Wink and Tony Blinken, out there, they knew nothing about the laptop. They all lied. Joe Biden lied. Hunter lied. Everybody lied. The media lied. Big tech lied. They censored the story, and that helped Joe in 2016. In 2020. I think Alvin Bragg would call that an FEC violation, Jonathan.
Well, I think that is the interesting takeaway with this strange shrug that the media gave the introduction of the laptop in the trial. The laptop was established by the FBI agent as real and authentic. And so the media said, okay, well, that evidence was now used. They forget all of the other files on that laptop. If the laptop is authentic, if those files are real, then you have these detailed accounts of a multi-million-dollar influence peddling operation run by the Biden family. Those would also be authentic. But the media just simply doesn't want to go there. And that's part of the problem with what the House committees have faced. When I testified in the Biden impeachment hearing, I said that there was ample evidence to do an impeachment inquiry. I didn't prejudge the evidence. But at every stage, the Democrats have opposed inquiries into the president's role, the president's knowledge, and a lot of these files on the laptop. And that's not likely to change even after this trial.
Merrick Garland is scorching Donald Trump and his allies for attacks on the Justice Department. He says it's dangerous for people's safety. Well, first of all, we need to protect every government official. Let me be very clear. And I've said that on numerous occasions on this show. However, criticism and freedom of speech are very different. And the idea that his DOJ and his FBI knew about the laptop being real, and they haven't investigated it for 4 years, I think he's got, and we'll go into more detail later, and I have a message for him, he's got a lot of explaining to do. Just like, what does he think of Letitia James and Alvin Bragg running on a platform to get one man, one organization, one family? I would think he might speak out against that, but he hasn't.
Well, I think that Garland now has an unavoidable test of principle. The 3 House committees sent him referrals of perjury by Hunter Biden and his uncle before Congress. Those referrals are very compelling. I don't see how there's a case to be made that those answers were anything other than false. Now, the Department of Justice was on a hair trigger to indict Trump officials. The question is whether Merrick Garland, as people expect, will scuttle any prosecution for perjury. So this is that other shoe dropping. Yes, this laptop was authenticated. Yes, these files are real. But after that, Hunter Biden, after they reviewed those files, he testified in Congress. And Congress believes, and there's a good basis for that belief, that he committed knowing perjury. These were questions that he knew were coming, and he gave false answers according to these committees. So what is Merrick Garland going to do about it? It's not time to write another op-ed. It's time to show that.
He's going to do nothing. He's Judge Engoron is A, Mershon is B, and Merrick Garland is C, and I haven't been wrong yet. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. I don't think he'll lift a finger. I think this is what weaponization of justice looks like.
I hope you're wrong, too. Yeah.
Me too, but I'm not.
Right.
I'd bet everything I have that I'm not, Professor. You can give me an F if I'm wrong. All right, joining us now, thank you, Professor. Joining us now, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, Harvard Law Professor Alan Dershowitz, JustTheNewsFounder.com founder John Solomon, editor-in-chief as well. John, let me start with the news. You broke a lot of this news. When did the FBI know that this was a very real laptop? And isn't that the big takeaway in this story, not the conviction?
Yeah, as I reported in 2020 on your show, and as the IRS whistleblowers later confirmed, the FBI corroborated the laptop in its entirety by March of 2020, 8 months before the 51 so-called intelligence analysts called it Russian disinformation. When they called it Russian disinformation, I called U.S. law enforcement, and they told me, no, we corroborated it. So the FBI was telling people, if you were willing to make a phone call back in the fall of 2020, that this laptop was real. And it's a shame that 51 men and women signed their name to a letter knowingly trying to mislead the American people days before an election when a single phone call, they all had security clearance. They could have called the FBI. They chose not to. They chose to mislead the American people in the most awful way.
And why was the FBI, Professor Dershowitz, why were they meeting weekly with big tech in the months leading up to the 2020 election? And why, when Twitter and Facebook requested an answer as to whether or not this New York Post story was real or what they were being warned about, misinformation about Hunter and about Joe Biden, why didn't they tell them the truth that John Solomon rightly reported in March of 2020 that they fully knew about? And by the way, what do you call that?
Well, you call it fraud. You call it exactly what Alvin Bragg charged Trump with, that is making false statements in an attempt to influence an election.
You know, my dad had an expression. He used to say, you know your success as a parent when you turn and look at your child and realize they turned out better than you.
Oh my, can you believe that? All disinformation, actually true. The conspiracy theorists were right all along. That's just nuts. And the media, yeah, they're downplaying this. Biden and his family are being exposed. It's coming out. We're all getting to know this was true. And everything the Democrats have been saying about Trump is exactly what they've been doing. Again, Sean Hannity's got a lot more to say on that. Go check him out. Fox News. At least somebody's trying to report the truth, which is obviously very elusive these days. Oh, my goodness. We're going to unravel another little mystery. You know, Pelosi, how she blamed January 6th on Trump because he's the one that incited it, and she did everything in her power to stop this worst thing in American history since America? Well, Benny Johnson. Pelosi has unhinged meltdown on live TV after leaked video providing she's responsible for January 6th. Have a listen.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. I love a good self-own, and man, there's no greater target for this than Nancy Pelosi. And I know this is a story about Nancy Pelosi, and it's really important because Nancy Pelosi is responsible for January 6th, and she was responsible for all of the security failures, and she refused to put the National Guard at the Capitol that would have prevented January 6th from ever happening. And the more you look into it, the more you realize what a rat's nest it all was. But I can't help myself but begin by playing you a video of Nancy Pelosi after the New Hampshire primary results, where Donald Trump won in a commanding victory. Nancy Pelosi deciding that she's going to talk about Donald Trump's mental capacity and then mixing up Trump with Joe Biden, proving she has no mental capacity. She's 82 years old, and the Botox is really starting to wear thin.
Well, let me just say I'm not going to spend too much time on Donald Trump's cognitive disorders. But what I am going to say, and I want to, in friendship, say to Chris, he tried to say that Nikki Haley did not allow the National Guard to come, but it was Nancy Pelosi. It was nobody. It was It was Donald Trump. Well,
what the hell is wrong with her? What is wrong with her? What is she talking about? Okay, so she didn't, though. She's now on tape. She's now on camera saying that she is totally responsible. And we now know through the documentation that Nancy Pelosi did reject the National Guard. That would have prevented all of January 6th. Nancy Pelosi is in charge of the U.S. Capitol as Speaker of the House. That's how it works. Therefore, she's in charge of security. And we know, based on the testimony of Stephen Sund, who is the Capitol Hill chief of police, that Nancy Pelosi refused to take his calls until the Capitol was breached. All of those things are facts. All those things are true. Now, yesterday, there was video of Nancy Pelosi that popped up that was quite shocking. It was video of Nancy Pelosi in the back of an SUV talking about how she's responsible for January 6th.
Responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had been. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So why weren't the National Guard there to begin with? Well, maybe because Nancy Pelosi wanted a photo op. Here's also Nancy Pelosi on the date of January 6th. The more you start to learn about this, the more curious it all gets. This is also Nancy Pelosi wandering down the halls during January 6th at a quite a slow pace, but she slows it down to make sure that the camera lady, which is her daughter, hits them angles. Got to get them angles on J6, right? Got to make sure that the camera person is able to capture every second of what's going on. All of this, of course, along with all of the wild curiosities during January 6th, led many to say, hey, Nancy, what the hell? It seems like you're caught red-handed here. We obviously know that there's documentation which has been released by the COVID subcommittee, the January 6th subcommittee. We know that Donald Trump authorized 25,000 National Guard to be there at the United States Capitol, because the chances of there being rabble-rousers or Antifa or BLM agitators LARPing as Trump supporters, which we know happened because one of them was sentenced to federal prison for 7 years. And the chances of that are very high. So we're going to protect ourselves. And Nancy Pelosi, given the constitutional authorities given to the various branches of government, Nancy Pelosi is the only person who could have ordered the National Guard at the U.S. Capitol. Now, the National Guard stayed there for months on end after January 6th, but there was literally nobody prepared or ready to handle an unruly riot, which is what occurred on January 6th. Now, you and I are both suspicious of those rioters, and that's a topic for another live. How does Nancy Pelosi defend this? How does she explain this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, she did her first news hit on this issue, and she could barely keep her eyes open. She could barely keep her teeth in. Time has not been kind to Nancy Pelosi, and I hope that the investigators of what actually happened on January 6th are not kind to Nancy Pelosi either. Let's listen.
Why do you think this is stirred up and a brouhaha on the right and in some corners of the media today?
Well, because of the fact is that the President of the United States, the former president, and his toadies do not want to face the facts. They're trying to do revisionist history on January 6th. But we cannot let us be dragged into their, again, false impression of what happened that day. They know what happened that day. They know how serious it is and was. and continues to have an impact on our country. And yet they want to call the people who were in there hostages. Last night I received the Lincoln Award. I was so proud of receiving that. And I said in my remarks, Lincoln built the dome on the Capitol. He insisted that it be built during the Civil War so that it could show the resilience of America. And to see these people.
Dude, okay, you're going to talk about America like you're some type of super. Like, she's got a Ukraine flag pin on. She's got a Ukraine flag pin on. Also, look, she can't open her eyes. Her eyes look worse than Joe Biden's. She can't open her eyes. Also, what is she talking about? Her argument here to admitting all of this on camera is, no, but Republicans did it. I know you are, but what am I? Uno reverse. That's it? That's the best you got? This is the best that all the DNC propaganda and PR teams can do?
Coming through the Capitol with their foul deeds and foul actions, waving Confederate flags and Nazi flags under Lincoln's dome was so shameful. And yet this president who incited, this former president who incited this insurrection would not send the National Guard for hours. People were harmed, people were killed, but died one way or another. And what did he do but...
The only person that died on the date of January 6th was a unarmed U.S. military veteran named Ashley Babbitt, who was killed without warning by a federal official who murdered her. The end. Right? It would be amazing to hear Nancy Pelosi, who, again, looks like she's 17 martinis in right here, answer.
Try to deny that any of it happened. This is a terrible thing, but let us not take away the attention of what we need to do to go forward. We have to unify our country. We have to bring people together in a way that honors the vision of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, as well as the aspirations of our children. I just came back from D-Day in Normandy to see our veterans there it was the 80th anniversary of it. Some of the youngest of them were 97, some over 100. They fought for our freedom, and yet you see how it is being denigrated by the former president and his Republican toadies.
Look at her her final image on the screen there is to suck in her dentures one more time, and she's clearly wildly excited to get off this hit to go insider trade a little bit more. So who are the insider traders in this country? It's Nancy Pelosi. Who are the insider traitors in this country? Well, we hope a thorough investigation into all the evidence that's been hidden, into all the actions of Nancy Pelosi, and the videotape, the actions on videotape that we now know of from Nancy Pelosi, that those come to light. And I think we'll learn a much clearer picture about what actually happened that day. A lot of weird stuff going on with Mark Milley, Susan Rice. Why was Mark Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, speaking with Obama's national security advisor? What's going on there? What was happening? Ooh, man. The dark tale of January 6th has yet to fully be written.
Nancy Pelosi, unbelievable. She was at Normandy, along there with the president apparently crapping his pants, and that's what she's referring to as the disgrace, because we weren't honoring our veterans as we should have. And the main attention right now, if you've been seeing anything in the news, is Biden was looking for a chair or something to that effect. And so it looks like that Joe Biden was pooping his pants at the ceremony, and there's many gaffes about it, so go check it out if you want a good laugh. That's crazy. It really is. Oh, man. Oh, you know what the crazy thing about it, at that Normandy, they had some really, really old veterans there, and I swear they probably have way better sense than Joe Biden. And to prove my point, I have a quick little clip here from Timcast. And this is Joe Biden basically saying that Camel Toe Harris, she was a diversity hire. Here, Biden tells you. Have a listen.
Biden speaking, where he says that Kamala Harris is a diversity hire. I'm not exaggerating. He calls her a diversity hire. I'll just play the video for you, and you can hear it for yourselves.
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country. And starts at the top with the vice president.
Biden is the gift that keeps on giving.
If you want a nominee who's a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, an Obama-Biden Democrat, join us. If you want a nominee who will bring this party together, who will run a progressive, positive campaign and turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. We can only reelect Donald Trump.
Well, there we have it. The elusive truth for this week. I want to thank Benny Johnson, the Rubin Report, Tim Cast, and Sean Hannity from Fox News. Awesome reporting. Like I said, you just have to look out there. There's so much stuff going on. Clown world at its finest. Keep looking for the elusive truth. We love you. Keep them high vibrations up. Don't listen to the mass media, because they are really pushing, felonious Donald Trump, which, have you heard? There's a big change in that case, too. Apparently one of the jurors was leaking out information before the trial ended. So, hold on to your seats, folks. It's going to get crazy. It's just starting. Happy summer. Everybody's out of school now. Okay, so they're going to do everything in their power to mess everything up for us Americans and the world. And remember, God loves you. We love you. We all love each other. That's how we're going to win this battle. You guys take care. We'll see you soon. Have a good week. Bye-bye.